Heroes and Legends, Dynasties 2, The Great Escape. Mythology had fallen, and its soldiers surrendered to the Empire. The Republic was no more. However, there was a Docdoron delegation that met up with Mythology before the war. The Docdorons were an elite tribe of people from planet Docdoron, which held itself in the Healthon Galaxy. This delegation was being protected by a man named Beidou, a 21-year-old. However, he was secretly the lover of the then former Prime Minister, Darian, but Darian was dead. Beidou fell into a depression and started drinking. He shortly sobered up and walked aimlessly to the forest. However, there he saw a little girl, a 12-year-old, running away. She was named Vashti. She was also a Docdoron. She was very cute and innocent looking. However, she is being chased by a couple of soldiers from the Edo Republic. And so Badu beat up the soldiers and asked Vashti where she was going and why the soldiers were after her. She didn't want to say anything, but however, she knew that both of them needed to get back home and leave the dimensions because it's no longer safe for them. Badu did not want to leave. He had enough of everything and felt like he lost everything close to him. Vashti then encouraged Beidou and was egging him on. She put up a cute smile and pleaded and begged, and Badu had no choice. The two would then begin their travels towards the dimensional portal, which led specifically to the Docdoron homeworld in the Healthon Galaxy. It was not really known why the Docdoron wanted to meet up with the Mythology, but the higher-ups that accompanied them died in the fighting, and so these two had no idea what the mission was all about. Still, they had to escape. However, as they began their travels and ducking Edo Republic soldiers, Vashti was hiding a secret within her heart. She had dreams of a much bigger and grander life. She was a little jealous of Dietrich von Lenin and his declaration of power. She wanted that for herself, but in her own way. However, unlike most of her people, she had ambitions of power. But the rest of the adults of the Docdoron were carefree people for a very, very long time. They had no lack of ambition anymore, and Vashti was sick of it. However, before she could explain herself to Badu, Badu hurried her up. They saw a steed, and together both of them rode it. Edo Republic soldiers were after them. They saw that some of the soldiers were knocked out and wanted payback, and so they began to run away. Badu, still unsure why the Edo soldiers were after Vashti, knew that he had to escape. They were just a couple miles away from the portal, where they encountered Sika Meta, the greedy old officer of the Edo Republic. He surrounded them with his forces. He got off his steed and demanded Badu and Vashti come off their horse. Badu came off his horse, but he told Vashti to stay on. Sika ordered the little girl to come with them, as they needed her. However, Badu would not allow them to take the little girl, so he slapped the horses behind, and the horse went crazy and passed through the Edo forces. Vashti screamed, "Badu, come with me!" Badu then rushed and snuck behind Saketa. Saketa couldn't do anything. He was completely caught off guard. Then he was pushed aside, and then some of the Edo soldiers tried to fight Beidou, but Beidou was skilled in martial arts, and he was able to beat them back with kicks and punches and chops to the neck. He stole one of the enemy horses and rode behind the horse and rode ahead. He grabbed the horse, which Vashti was on, and calmed it down, and the two continued on the pathway to the dimensional portal. Vashti was at awe. She had no idea Badu could fight. "Wow, that was impressive," she said. Badu said, "I was a bodyguard for a high-level diplomat, but I became interested in this country's late Prime Minister. We had something of a secret friendship going on." Vashti, being more wise than she should be in her age, said the unthinkable. "So, you were having sex with the Prime Minister?" Badu was red with embarrassment. Hey, you shouldn't be saying those things. Hey, how old are you anyway? And yeah, I don't want to talk about it. She laughed hysterically and said, no wonder you're so down and mopey when we first met. But you have my condolences. The sooner we leave these dimensions and head back home, we can forget about the past and start a future. Badu was confused. What was Vashti talking about? Who was she with? He asked these questions. But she refused to answer. She said in due time, all would be revealed. But for now, they must escape. They looked behind them and saw that Sikameta and his forces were riding hard, chasing after them. And so the two Doctorans decided to speed and head straight towards the dimensional portal. Well, he told the horses to go that way, and the horses collided with the enemy's horses, which caused a collision, and all the horsemen fell down, as Zekita could only watch in disbelief as the two Doctorans made it past them and head straight to the dimensional portal back home. Moments later, the Grand General herself, with the sunlight blocking her face, appeared upon Sekita as he was still laying down on the ground. He looked upon her with shock, awe, and fear. The Grand General asked, have the two Doctorans escaped you? And then he reluctantly said, yes, my lady, forgive me. Then she said, Meta, you fool. You had one task. Now we will never know why the Doctorans were in Manatology in the first place. You better be sure that this does not amount to anything. But if it does, I will be holding you personally responsible for it. Now, get your men and clean up this mess, and head back to your station. The Grand General left. Before she left, she closed the dimensional gate, to ensure that that gate was closed, as they set about closing all the dimensional gates as they found them, and only leaving one or two for access for Lestron and his forces to appear from. Mystery, intrigue, and secrets. What were those two doing in mythology? What was Vashti worried about? And why was she so ambitious for a young age? These secrets and more will be revealed at a later time.